Lions rule for 3 years, wolves maybe 5, but this T-Rex, he ruled for 20 years of absolute dominance until today, until he showed up. Let me take you back 66 million years to the late Cretaceous period, where the sun hung heavy over what would one day become Montana. The air was thick with humidity, and the ground trembled beneath the weight of giants. This was the age of Titans, an age where survival wasn't a game of strategy, but a brutal contest of strength, speed, and sheer willpower. And in this unforgiving world, there was one creature who stood above all others. His name, well, we'll call him Rex. Rex wasn't just any Tyrannosaurus. He was the Tyrannosaurus, the alpha, the apex, the king of a territory that stretched across 50 square miles of dense forest, open plains, and rivers teeming with life. For 2 decades, nothing challenged him. Triceratops herds scattered at the sound of his footsteps. Edmontosaurus fled before they even saw him. Even the Ankylosaurus, armored tanks of muscle and bone, knew better than to linger when Rex was near. But today was different. Today, Rex woke up and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. The sky was painted in shades of orange and crimson as the sun slowly crept over the horizon. Rex stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking his domain, his massive frame silhouetted against the morning light. 13 meters long. 7 tons of muscle, bone, and predatory instinct. His scarred hide told stories of 1,000 battles, clawed marks from rival predators, bite wounds from desperate prey, and the fated remnants of confrontations that would have killed lesser creatures. But Rex had survived them all. Until now. He took a deep breath, his powerful lungs filling with the cool morning air. Normally, this was his favorite time of day. The calm before the hunt, the quiet before the roar. But this morning, something was wrong. His ribs ached from a wound that refused to heal. His left leg, injured in a hunt weeks ago, throbbed with every step. And most troubling of all, his vision was blurring at the edges. Age. It was the one enemy no predator could defeat. Rex was 28 years old, ancient by T-Rex standards. Most of his kind didn't live past 20. He had outlasted his rivals, outlived his siblings, and even survived the death of his mate 3 years prior. But now, his body was betraying him. His reflexes were slower. His bite, though still devastating, lacked the crushing force it once had. And worst of all, every younger male in the territory could sense it. Weakness. And in the world of apex predators, weakness was a death sentence. Below him, the valley was waking up. A herd of Edmontosaurus moved slowly through the mist, their duck-billed heads dipping into the undergrowth as they foraged for ferns and cycads. In the distance, a family of Triceratops emerged from the tree line, their massive frills catching the first rays of sunlight. The forest was alive with sound, the chirping of primitive birds, the buzzing of enormous dragonflies, the distant calls of Parasaurolophus echoing through the canyons. This was Rex's kingdom, or at least, it had been. He shifted his weight, testing his injured leg. Pain shot through the joint like lightning, but he forced himself to take a step, then another. He couldn't afford to show weakness. Not here, not now, because he knew, somewhere out there, watching from the shadows, was a younger, stronger male who had been waiting for this moment. The moment when the old king faltered. The moment when the throne became available. Rex scanned the horizon, his keen eyes searching for movement. His sense of smell, one of the most powerful in the animal kingdom, detected something on the wind. Something familiar. Something threatening. And then he heard it. A roar. Deep, guttural, aggressive. It came from the valley below, echoing off the canyon walls like a declaration of war. Rex's eyes narrowed. He knew that roar. He had heard it before, months ago, when a young male had tested the boundaries of his territory. Back then, Rex had driven him off with ease. A quick charge, a bone-rattling bellow, and the youngster had fled with his tail between his legs. But that was months ago. Now, the roar was different, louder, more confident, and it was coming closer. Rex descended from the cliff, his massive feet shaking the ground with each step. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through his battered body, but he couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. He had spent 20 years defending this territory. 20 years of blood, sweat, and dominance. He wasn't about to give it up without a fight, even if it killed him. The forest grew quieter as he moved through it. The prey animals, sensing the tension in the air, had gone silent. They knew what was coming. They had seen this before. The clash of titans, the changing of the guard. And they knew that when two apex predators fought, it was best to stay far, far away. As Rex emerged into a large clearing, he saw him. The challenger. He was younger, maybe 15 years old, in his prime. His muscles rippled beneath his dark, scarred hide, and his eyes burned with an intensity that made even Rex feel a flicker of, what was it? Respect? No. Recognition. This wasn't just any challenger. This was a predator who had fought his way up from the bottom, who had survived the brutal gauntlet of adolescence, who had proven himself worthy of this moment. This was a predator who reminded Rex of himself 2 decades ago. The two titans stood 50 meters apart, sizing each other up. The clearing was perfect for this. Open ground, no obstacles, nowhere to hide. Just raw strength against raw strength. The challenger took a step forward, his head low, his jaws slightly parted. He was younger, faster, hungrier. But Rex had experience. Rex had survived countless battles. Rex had tricks that this young upstart hadn't even dreamed of yet. But Rex also had something else. Pain, exhaustion, age. The challenger roared again, and this time Rex answered. His roar shook the trees, sent birds scattering into the sky, and made the ground itself tremble. It was a roar that said, "I am still the king. I am still the alpha. And if you want this territory, you'll have to take it from my cold, dead jaws." The challenger's response was simple. He charged. The young male came at Rex like a living battering ram, his massive legs propelling him forward with terrifying speed. His jaws were wide open, aiming for Rex's throat. A killing blow if it landed. But Rex had fought this battle 100 times before. He sidestepped at the last possible second, using his bulk to slam into the challenger's flank. The impact was devastating. The young male's momentum carried him forward, but Rex's weight sent him sprawling, dirt and leaves flying in all directions. For a moment, Rex thought it was over, that the challenger would retreat, lick his wounds, and wait for another day. But the young male recovered far too quickly. He spun around with frightening agility and lunged again, this time catching Rex's shoulder with his teeth. Pain exploded through Rex's body as the challenger's jaws clamped down, tearing through muscle and sinew. Rex roared, not in fear, but in rage, and twisted his massive head, sinking his own teeth into the challenger's back. The two predators wrestled, their combined 14 tons tearing up the ground beneath them. Trees splintered, rocks shattered. The earth itself seemed to groan under the sheer violence of their struggle. Rex used every trick he knew. He twisted. He pivoted. He used his weight to his advantage, trying to pin the younger male down. For a few precious seconds, it worked. He had the challenger pinned, his jaws inches from the young male's throat. One bite. That's all it would take. But then, his injured leg gave out. For just a fraction of a second, he faltered. And in the world of apex predators, A fraction of a second was all it took. The challenger felt the shift in weight and exploded upward, throwing Rex off balance. Before the older male could recover, the young predator lunged forward and slammed his head into Rex's ribs, right where the unhealed wound festered. Rex gasped. The wind knocked out of him. The pain was unlike anything he had felt before. Sharp, burning, consuming. He stumbled backward, his vision swimming, his legs struggling to keep him upright. The challenger pressed his advantage. He lunged again, his jaws closing around Rex's throat. But Rex wasn't done yet. With the last reserves of his strength, he twisted violently, throwing the younger male off balance. The challenger's grip loosened just enough for Rex to break free, blood streaming from his neck and shoulder. He staggered back, breathing heavily, each breath sending fresh spikes of agony through his battered body. The challenger circled him slowly, his eyes calculating, sensing victory. And for the first time in 20 years, Rex felt something he had never felt before: defeat. Rex did something he had never done in his entire life. He retreated. Not a full retreat. Not yet. But he backed away, step by agonizing step, his eyes never leaving the challenger. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to stand his ground, to die with honor. But another part of him, a deeper, older part, told him the truth. This fight was over, and if he stayed, he would die. The younger male watched him go, his chest heaving, blood dripping from his jaws. He could have pressed the attack. He could have finished it right there. But he didn't, because he didn't need to. They both knew the truth. The old king was finished. As Rex limped into the tree line, he heard it, the sound that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. The challenger's victory roar. It echoed across the valley, bouncing off the canyon walls, announcing to every creature within miles that a new king had risen. And Rex just kept walking. The forest seemed different now. Rex moved through it like a ghost, his once proud stride reduced to a painful limp. Every step sent fresh waves of agony through his injured leg and ribs. Blood still seeped from the wounds on his neck and shoulder, leaving a dark trail behind him. But he kept moving, because stopping meant dying, and Rex wasn't ready to die. Not yet. He passed through territories he hadn't visited in years, places where he had fought his earliest battles, where he had made his first kills, where he had claimed this land as his own. The memories flooded back, vivid and sharp. He remembered the day he had challenged the previous alpha. He had been young then, barely 10 years old, but filled with a burning ambition that wouldn't be denied. The fight had been brutal, lasting nearly an hour. But in the end, Rex had emerged victorious. The old alpha had retreated, just as Rex was retreating now. Rex never saw that old male again. He wondered if he would suffer the same fate. Around him, the forest was changing. The prey animals that had once fled at his approach now watched him with curiosity rather than fear. A herd of Edmontosaurus paused their grazing to stare as he passed, their eyes filled with something that looked almost like pity. Even the smaller predators, the troodons and dromaeosaurs who usually kept their distance, now followed at a safe distance, waiting. They knew. They could smell the blood, sense the weakness. They were waiting for him to fall, so they could feast. Rex growled at them, a weak sound compared to his usual roar, but it was enough to make them scatter. For now. But they would be back. By midday, Rex had made it to the river. It was the same river where he had claimed his first kill as a young male. The same river where he had fought off 3 rivals in a single day. The same river where his mate had died, torn apart by a pack of Dakota raptors that had grown too bold. He collapsed at the water's edge, his legs finally giving out. His reflection stared back at him from the clear water, and for a moment, he didn't recognize what he saw. The creature in the water looked old. broken, defeated. Is that really me? He wondered. He lowered his massive head to the water and drank deeply, the cool liquid soothing his parched throat. Around him, life continued as if nothing had changed. A herd of Edmontosaurus grazed in the distance, unaware, or perhaps uncaring, that the predator who had haunted their nightmares for 2 decades was dying just a few hundred meters away. A pair of troodons scurried past, their sharp eyes watching Rex warily. They kept their distance, but Rex could see the calculation in their gazes. They were waiting for him to die, so they could feast. Rex closed his eyes and let out a long, tired breath. The sun was warm on his back, and for a brief moment, the pain seemed to fade. He let himself drift, his mind wandering back through the years. Rex remembered his first hunt. He had been young, barely old enough to leave his mother's side, when he spotted a juvenile Parasaurolophus separated from its herd. His mother had taught him well. Wait for the right moment, strike fast, aim for the neck. He remembered the taste of warm blood, the thrill of the kill, the primal satisfaction of dominance. He remembered his first territory dispute. A rival male, slightly older and larger, had challenged him for a prime hunting ground. The fight had been fierce, but Rex had won. He still carried the scar from that battle, a deep gouge along his left flank. He remembered his mate. She had been fierce, powerful, beautiful in the way only apex predators could be. Together, they had been unstoppable. Together, they had ruled absolutely. They had raised 3 offspring. 2 had died young, 1 to disease, the other to a Dakota raptor pack. The 3rd had survived to adulthood and left to claim his own territory. Rex wondered if his son was still alive. He would never know. He remembered the day his mate died. The Dakota raptors had been bold, emboldened by their numbers. They had attacked while Rex was away, hunting. By the time he returned, it was too late. He had killed 4 of them that day, his rage so absolute that the survivors fled and never returned. But it hadn't brought her back. After that, Rex had ruled alone. And he had ruled with an iron fist, his grief transforming into an unmatched ferocity that made him legendary across the territory. For 3 more years, no one dared challenge him. Until today. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon now, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson. Rex lay on his side, his breathing shallow and labored. The wound on his neck had stopped bleeding, but infection had already set in. He could feel the fever burning through his body, sapping what little strength remained. Trism's vision was fading, the world becoming a blur of colors and shapes. But he could still hear the sounds of the forest coming alive for the night, the calls of nocturnal predators stirring, the rustling of prey animals seeking shelter, the endless cycle of life and death continuing as it always had. And then he heard it again. A roar, the challenger's roar. It came from Rex's former territory, from the cliff where Rex had stood just that morning. The young male was claiming it as his own, marking his territory, announcing to the world that he was the new alpha. Rex listened, and for a brief moment, he felt something unexpected. Pride, not for himself, but for the continuation of the cycle. The challenger would rule now, just as Rex had ruled before him. And one day, maybe 10 years from now, maybe 20, another young male would rise and challenge him, and the cycle would continue. This was the way of the world. This was the way it had always been. Rex had been that young challenger once, full of fire and ambition and the unshakable belief that he would rule forever. But forever doesn't exist, not for predators, not for kings, not for anyone. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon, Rex closed his eyes one final time. His breathing slowed. His heartbeat weakened. He thought of his mate. He thought of his offspring. He thought of the countless hunts, the battles won and lost, the prey taken, the rivals defeated. 20 years. 20 years of absolute dominance. It had been a good run. And as the darkness closed in, Rex, the greatest Tyrannosaurus who ever lived, took his final breath. The forest fell silent for just a moment. A brief pause, as if nature itself was acknowledging the passing of a legend. And then, life continued. The troodons crept closer. The scavengers descended. Within hours, Rex's body would be picked clean. Within days, his bones would be scattered. Within weeks, they would be buried beneath layers of sediment. And 66 million years later, a team of paleontologists would uncover those bones and marvel at their size. They would study the healed fractures, the battle scars, the signs of a life lived at the absolute peak of predatory dominance. They would reconstruct his skeleton. They would write papers about him. They would put him in museums where millions of people would stare in awe. And they would wonder, what was his story? Well, now you know. Rex ruled for 20 years. 20 years of absolute dominance. He fought his way to the top and held that position longer than any predator had a right to. And when his time came, he faced the end, the same way he had faced every challenge in his life, with strength, with dignity, and without regret. Because in the world of apex predators, there are no happy endings. There is only the hunt, and eventually, the final rest. The new king would rule now, and one day, he too would fall. Because that's the way of nature. That's the circle of life. And in 66 million years, when humans dig up the bones of both the old king and the new, they'll wonder which one was greater. But the truth is, they were both just players in an endless game. A game where the only certainty is change.